How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to a live episode of Tier Talk. It's going to be fun. It's a little early, but give us more time to chat, hang out, answer questions from the audience. My guests today are going to be Joe Pomponio and Russ Hamilton. And guys, when we do these shows, we're devoted to you guys. So please keep the questions coming in the comments. We'll answer all the questions that go to those comments. But in the meantime, let me bring on Joe and Russ. We'll start the dialogue off with talking about working in the holidays and then go right towards the questions that are being asked in the comments. So first, let me get Russ in. Russ, what's going on?
Hey, Anthony, how you doing?
Hey there, Russ.
I'm here.
Good. What's going on, man? We're doing a live show. It's early for you, Russ. This is too early to do a show.
Oh, we're in a live show? Oh, my gosh. Oh, I was not aware. No, I was aware. I'm just kidding you. Yes, it's nice out here on the West Coast. I'm just, enjoying things and whatnot. I've got, I have us on the big screen behind me here so that hopefully I can read the questions, because it's always hard for me to read the.
I'm going to share us out to the audience as we speak. Do you mind introducing yourself to the audience?
Of course. My name is Russ Hamilton. I am a former and retired sergeant with California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Started my career all the way back in the 80s, back at San Quentin State Prison. Eventually, I promoted to sergeant. Eventually, after that, I retired. Eventually, after that, I went to work for a juvenile correctional facility as a senior juvenile correctional officer. And now I work for a private company where we do reentry and rehabilitation work for a local probation department and a local county jail, where I am a case manager.
And while I'm sharing this out, do you mind telling us how Keepers of Chaos is going on Facebook?
Okay, so Keepers of Chaos on Facebook is my little venue where we really try and focus on, actually providing good insight, history, training, knowledge, and camaraderie for those interested in the professional aspects of what it means to be a corrections professional.
Well, and I love what your page does, Russ, or your Facebook group. It's just a bunch of good people sharing tips and advice. I wish I would have had that going in, but I'm glad we're able to provide that now. And let's also get Joe Pomponio. What's up, Joe?
Hey, guys. Good evening. How are y'all?
Good. And Joe, do you mind introducing yourself to our audience, please?
Absolutely. My name is Joe Pomponio. I'm a retired lieutenant from the Texas Department of Criminal Justice of almost 30 years, and I currently work for our local county jail in the jail division, as well as a panel member for Tier Talk and a moderator for Keepers of Chaos.
Yes, and we love having you. So real quick, while we get to these guys, please ask questions. Keep the questions coming. Hey, guys, just real quick on a little side note, let me just put this on the bottom. I have 2 books available on the market. Just to let you guys know, we have Inmate Manipulation Decoded. That book's available. Link to that's in the description. That book does very well, just pretty much does what it's supposed to do. Available on Amazon. And what's cool about this book, it's used for training all across the country. And then we also have another book out there, How to Succeed in Corrections. This book is just tons of tips. It's published by Blue 360 Media. The link to that is in the description. That book can only be purchased through the publisher at Blue 360 Media. And I have another book coming out at the beginning of the year that's going to partner with this with over 40 more tips that will kind of partner well with that book here. That's also going to be published through Blue 360 Media. And again, link to that is in the description. All right, guys, we do have people coming in. We have, you know what? I don't know, man. I'm thinking about, before we talk about the holidays, we already have questions coming in. First off, thank you, Ed French, retired 25 years. Looks like Illinois Department of Corrections. Thank you for your service. We also have Gayla Dennison. Happy holidays from Sacramento, California. My mom is a retired CDCR lieutenant and formerly known Youth Authority, senior youth counselor. My nephew is a CO at San Quentin. Russ, it's Russ, a CO at San Quentin. You worked at San Quentin. I mean, we have to thank.
That was my original stomping grounds. That brings back a lot of memories. And so, it was a fantastic, experience to work there. That was really, the foundation that I got my start in was working there. And I don't think that there's a better institution to start at anywhere on earth.
And I just want to say her whole family seems to be in correction. So obviously, thank you for your service. So let's go with the first question right off the bat. We'll go with Russ. We'll go with Joe and then myself. First question comes from Marlene Painter. Have you ever heard of nurses carrying mace or some type of spray? Go ahead, Russ, you first.
So I would guess that when you first broach that subject, that there's going to be, a level of resistance. We as, officers and so forth, we know what training it takes, to be able to carry that stuff. We're familiar with using it. I would say, though, if you're short staffed or whatever, it's always worth writing up that proposal and putting it through whatever's necessary to try and get it approved, whether that's something that can be done statutorily or beyond statutorily, extra statutorily. What I mean is there might be things that preclude that in your penal code from that, but maybe not. It just depends on which state you're in and whether or not, you have a forward-looking, proactive type of administration there that's willing to go, hey, you know what, we can use every little bit that we can. It's going to require some extra training. It's going to, require you guys to probably exchange some kind of chits or something for it to check it out and check it back in. It's just one of those things that I think it's worth exploring, but there is going to be resistance to it.
Yeah, and I want to also mention something else before we get to Joe. She said, prison nurse here is looking for ways to protect us while we're short on officers. What can I ask to have? So, like Russ mentioned, anytime you're going to, they're de-escalation tools, let's be honest, self-defense tools, but more importantly, we use them as de-escalation tools. Everybody would have to be in agreement of what you are allowed to utilize, which means that everybody usually is equipped with the same thing, the same type of OC. I don't know if they would do this for civilians, but because we had this discussion before, when working in a correctional environment, all the officers that are trained to use OC have also been sprayed with OC. I don't know if that will be a requirement on this end, but the reason why they do that is because basically they want you to understand what it feels like to be sprayed with OC. So there is a lot of responsibility when it comes to carrying what I would call tools. I mean, a lot of people may think, oh, it's great to have these things, but they may not realize the responsibility of having it just in case it gets misused. And also the agency has to worry about possible liability. If you start giving everybody these tools and they start getting misused, the agency falls into a lot of liability. So there's definitely going to be some level of extensive training, but also some level of maybe personal accountability. I would think that would also be part of it. But do I think it's a good idea? If it's supported with training and, there's an understanding of what it's utilized for, I don't think it's a bad thing. But having said that, the biggest concern I would have with that is people that could have access to it that are just paranoid in nature and they'll just spray anything because they're scared. And we're trained to basically use those things as last resources, not our first resource. But what's your thoughts on that, Joe?
Well, down here there's typically a couple of things that stand in the way of that actually being able to happen. Number one, the question is the medical outfit that is overseeing the medical care for that particular facility, are they contracted? Or are they actually part of the prison staff? And I say that because 9 times out of 10, if they're a subcontracted medical outfit, they have to fall underneath their supervision first. And a lot of them will not allow nurses to carry them just for that reason, because of the fact that, we teach the OC training and stuff here in the academy. You're exposed to it as well. It's a liability issue. And, anytime that an offender is in the infirmary or medical, whatever, whatever you happen to call it, there's always going to be a security officer there to begin with anyway. At no time should an offender be left in medical alone with a nurse to have to put her in a position to ask herself, hey, can I carry OC? But short answer is you would have to get with your supervision first to find out if it's even allowable by your supervision, your medical supervision, before they can even start to look at the possibility of even getting you trained or qualified to carry OC. So, and that varies by state. In Texas, all of our penal facilities here are subcontracted between two medical outfits, UTMB and Texas Tech, and they are not allowed to carry per their supervision and per ours. So, that's something you have to do some research on with your supervision to see if they would even allow it before they could approach the administration of the facility to find out if they can get you actually trained on it.
And I want to mention something, guys. Good to see you. That's the Sandy, right back to her. And also, mind you, even if it's vendored out, the liability will still fall with the agency. So the agency is going to want to have some level of training if they decide to do that. Because even if let's say the vendor decides, oh, we're going to train our people. Yeah, well, that training still has to be co-signed. So I think it would be the interest of the agency to issue the training themselves if they decide to do that. It's risky, guys. But I get it. Do you feel that it's needed for safety? But again, I'd rather have custody staff next to you. But if you're running that far under, then the question that you're asking makes total sense. But if your facility is properly staffed, which probably isn't the way the world is going right now, I would rely more on custody assistance than the OC. Also, we got a shout out from Scout. Hey, Anthony, all is well. Hi, panel, guest in chat. Just popping in for a few to say hi and wish everyone a very happy and healthy and prosperous new year. Same to you, Scout, of course. There are times they go without an officer on our side. What can we use to protect ourselves? We're staff of the prison. Okay, so let's think outside the box. Let's go with Joe first. All right, Joe, we're working in an understaffed facility. The civilians also are affected by that, of course. Not only is it custody that doesn't feel safe and we're understaffed, but obviously the civilians that depend on custody to respond are also going to feel unsafe. So how do we supplement?
Man, that's a tough one because, to me, at no time should medical professionals be around offenders without somebody from security there at all, period. That to me, that shouldn't even be happening. Due to the fact that, the medical professionals aren't trained, they don't carry COP or, OC spray. So, that's kind of a toughie because that shouldn't be happening to begin with. To me, that's a security concern, a very big security concern.
Yeah, it's a tough. Russ, Russ, for me, guys, I don't want to sound in general, but for me, when I don't see enough staffing, because I do get nervous, I definitely really is going to remain focused on policy and procedure, especially if I was a civilian, to see what's expected and what's not. Like if I see a lot of staffing and I was a civilian, I may feel a little bit comfortable. I wouldn't be so worried about, even though I should be, but because I have a lot of staffing around me, I wouldn't be so worried about safety and security because I know they have my back. But when it's not there, I'm probably going to be stepping up my knowledge, understanding how the facility runs, realizing where the vulnerabilities are, and then go ahead and just basically constantly educate myself on the overall running on the facility, which would be a lot deeper than I would if I felt that the place was properly staffed. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't always know it regardless. I am, but I do believe we should always have knowledge in that area. But when I feel that if there's always proper staffing, sometimes the civilians are comfortable knowing that, okay, I do have people that have my back. I could stay focused on the gifts that I bring to the facility. But if you feel that it's understaffed, you may want to kind of look into what safety and security is all about and just kind of get an understanding of where those vulnerabilities are, because you're going to have to step up your game, because at that point here, there may not be enough custody staff to back you up in case you drop a piece or two. Does that make sense, Russ? I'm trying to think of where the balance would be.
This is what I would say is up your game as far as what your situational awareness is by upping what other people's situational awareness is. Make sure that people always know where you are be telling, your control units, hey, I'm going to be doing, something in pod, whatever, try and have them, watching you on, on the monitors or whatever. Make sure that they provide you with some type of, personal alarm device. Hopefully it's something, that, has, some type of sound beacon in it. And that'll be one of those things, that can, help to make sure that, if something does happen, that somebody knows about it. That's the biggest danger in not having, the right number of staff and things is when people don't know that there's an issue. If we know that there's an issue, we can almost always sort it out. So those are the things that I would be looking to do. Make sure someone knows where you're at. Make sure you're on camera. Make sure that they're providing you with some type of personal alarm device. Make sure that they provide you with a backup personal alarm device, a whistle.
Yeah, and you know what? Also, it doesn't hurt to, if it's possible, I don't know what the staffing is like for medical, but, maybe if you get a chance to walk around with a peer and also discuss, maybe concerns with them so everybody's on the same page. And then if you have concerns, voice it up to your immediate supervisor, voice it up to administration. And then I would also go as far as documenting it, because sometimes even if there's not enough staffing, management may realize there's still a concern and they may have to adjust in how things are done. The biggest concern here is when you don't document stuff and you're just like, oh, it's unsafe, but you never take note of it or pass it up. Things are always going to go the same way. So if you feel that there are safety concerns, and not only do you express that there are safety concerns, but you detail how those concerns could play out, administration will review that, realize that there's liability on the other end of that, and it will force them into a position where they must correct what has to be done. And that also includes the agency, if you're hired on the outside, the agency that you work for, because the agency that you work for also has a responsibility towards your safety and security. So if you document stuff towards them, as a signed vendor, contractual, whatever it is, they will go back to a higher level and say, at this point, our staff does not feel safe in this one facility. And as noted, these are the specific reasons why. These aren't people that feel paranoid. These aren't people that don't understand what it's like to be working in a prison or jail. They're very aware of it. So having said that, these are how the concerns relate to not just their ability to do their job, but also their ability to do the job effectively. And I would you agree with that, Joe, in being specific with the concerns and then definitely documenting and passing it up?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, not just just for your own concerns, but your coworkers too. A concern isn't noted unless you bring it forward. So definitely document it.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to say this because I mean, if you're not going to get the OC, obviously people say, well, practice some self-defense on the outside, and I get it. But the only thing is, and it's still good to know, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying not to learn it. Of course, if you have the chance to learn it. Not a lot of people have the time to commit to that because it is a commitment. And also some of these people, it doesn't even matter what type of martial arts you may know, they could be twice your size. So I think the best bet is once you feel that there's a concern and you know that there's a concern, I think your best bet is to document it and then go ahead and see if you can get ahead of it before something bad can happen. Okay, so let me see. So I'm just hitting up a couple of things. First off, Sandy Howard. What's up, Sandy Howard? It's been a while. Hope all is well. I know, I think Joe, we all know Sandy Howard, correct, Joe?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we all know Sandy Howard. I see Joe screaming back in the thing. So, guys, real quick, while we get some of the questions. Oh, we have another one. Let's answer it. This is from Gayla. By the way, Gayla's mother in 1973 was, I believe, the first female CO for the state of California. Russ.
Yeah, I could be remembering this wrong, but I think at one point when those changes were first being made, that they did a documentary, and I think it was called "The Women of San Quentin" or something like that. But I remember reading about that. We actually had some material when I first went through the academy, and I also see that Gayla wants me to regale people on here with some type of story. Maybe we'll get to that at some point during this.
Yeah, we're always game for a story. And Of course, when we're low on questions, yeah, fill us in with a story. But I would love to hear maybe her mom's story. Where I don't know. Hopefully, her mom's still alive. If not, maybe we could share her legacy on this channel and give that hero a proper recognition. But I want to answer Gayla's question. Then we got another one from a transport officer, Transport Officer Poe. But let's go with Gayla first. What are some changes in safety policies from the old days in the prisons and jails? Okay, so I'm still a young buck. Not really. I have 21 years in, so I guess that counts. But let's start with the oldest person in the room. Okay, guys, decide. No one wants to volunteer.
Take it away, Russ.
Okay, Russ. I'll take it away. When I first came in, the way that we responded to things, the way that we started our whole evolution in response to disturbance control and that type of thing was really, really poor. And what I mean by that is basically we had this thing where you would sound the alarm, and then we would get the thundering herd coming through. And if you didn't get hurt by the inmate that you were having the problem with, you were sure to get hurt by the thundering herd. And, things were kind of haphazard, and we weren't necessarily taking control and making every inmate get down. And then things switched, things changed, and we started being much more conscious about what our response looked like. A response, an alarm automatically meant that, all the inmates had to get down. And if they didn't get down, it meant one thing. It meant that they were involved, and we would treat them like they were involved. And we went from that to being able to have a lot more tools at our disposal. I started out, we had the PR-24 baton, but then after a few years, we got the OC, and that was a good change. And then eventually we got this decentralized, armories, basically, where you could go and you could get a vest full of, grenades and OC and things like that, or 40 millimeters. And it just made each and every one of us, a force multiplier. And we would all have, at least 2 chem grenades on our belt. And so we didn't have to wait for things to get completely out of control and wait for CERT to get there, because we could just respond, because we had the things that we needed to. We had the 40 millimeters, we had the Mark 46s, we had, tons and tons of Mark 9s. We had, the chemical grenades, blast dispersion, baton rounds, everything you can imagine. And everyone was trained on it. It wasn't just, a special group. And I think that that's really the thing that, helps keep a lot of our riots from going full blown and actually losing institutions, where we end up doing stupid things like back in the day where they had to call in the National Guard for Attica and things like that. So that's where I see the real good changes as far as safety goes.
All right. I think that's spot on, Russ. I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I feel that we have so much people trying to control us from the outside looking in, that they've made it less safe for us, because we're not involved in any of the perspectives when it comes to going for change. And I think that's a problem. But I also think we on the inside are not helping it as much, because we become so disenfranchised that we assume instead of actually knowing. I've had people tell me, yeah, it's bullshit. When we're escorting an inmate to yard, like a maximum security inmate, which requires the most amount of restraints, whatever it is, but they're more concerned about yard. And, it's like I got to take I can't worry about securing them and restraints. I got to get them right to yard. And I'm like, well, who said that to you? Excuse me? Like, who in administration told you not to secure the person before you put them in yard? Well, Gangi, that's how they make us feel. That's a bad assumption. I have a feeling that there are some outside influences that have shaken us or try to shake us away from our core values. I do think there are a lot of good people in management who try to stick to those core values and fight every day. They don't sacrifice what's important for what is urgent, or because someone from the outside said it needs to be done. It's still got to meet, this criteria, or we can't do it. But again, the greatest concern is for me right now is that we're evolving to some extent, but we have to be more involved in that evolution. And I think that we can create a great partnership with rehabilitation and safety and security, but we ourselves, the custody side, cannot be disenfranchised. We have to just keep on fighting to have our voice heard, keep on fighting to be a part of it, because the moment we give up, the change is still going to happen regardless. So we have no choice but to keep on, providing the effort. And if the outcome is the outcome, it is what it is, but you can't give up on the effort, because at that point there, you will get the outcome you don't want. And that will be at 100%. You'll get the outcome you don't want because you're not involved in it. What's your thoughts on this, Joe?
Well, I mean, from way back in the day till now, a lot of things, perception has changed, mentality has changed, politics have changed. Huge night and day difference from the way we handled offenders 30 years ago to the way we handle them today. Huge difference in the way we responded to incidents 30 years ago versus how we respond today. 30 years ago, we would respond to an incident when it was called. It was the, we call it the gray wall. Because our uniforms are gray, so we'd call it the gray wall. Everybody would drop what they're doing and haul ass to a response. Now they've instituted what they call an incident command system, and things are a little more structured, a little more slowed. The response is still somewhat the same. Just a lot of jargon and radio traffic in between, which to me, I believe takes up way too much time, takes up more time than it needs. But, in dealing with the offenders, and safety wise between 30 years ago and today, my biggest thing is I think perception and outside influence and politics have changed. 30 years ago, it wasn't nothing to see a TDC boss or a security officer escorting one from one place to another in a set of handcuffs. It was ordinary. It was, something that we did every day and wasn't thought about. Now it I don't want to say it's deemed cruel and unusual, but when it's shown through news media outlets, we absolutely at times look barbaric, even though we're doing our normal daily job duties. As far as the safety practices are concerned, some things have changed for the better. Some things to me have not changed to the better, especially, nationwide now that we're short staffed. I don't really feel that the safety policies are where they need to be, and the security practices and safety practices are where they need to be as well.
Yeah, and I like to add something too. I think the inmates nowadays are also more entitled because they have a lot more groups on the outside that advocate for them. They advocate for them basically as individuals, which hurts us because we actually have to handle the facility, for everyone, not just one person. And I think the problem is the inmates that feel entitled. Now, unfortunately, when the families call, they used to advocate. I get that. But now the families will be telling you, no, this is what you're going to do. And it's like, excuse me? I mean, I get you want to advocate for your loved one, but now you're telling me how to do my job. And the thing is, man, that's one child that you have locked up. I have, 2,400 inmates here. That's a Pandora's box. There's no specialized treatment here. And I mean, we did a great show the other day, me and Joe, on, giving families advice when it comes to having a loved one in the facility. If you get a chance, you got to look at that, because it really does give the family a good perspective on what we're dealing with, but a way to work with the system. And the other thing is, we do make a lot of efforts to de-escalate. I mean, obviously, uses of forces are easily seen now in the media. So we provide all effort to de-escalate when we can, when we can prepare to use the force. That's the key, in preparation to use force, because we want to let people know that it is a last resort. It's not something that we want to go to, but at any point we will. But now remember, there'll be times when you cannot de-escalate. But I will want people to know this too, because sometimes people take things to the extreme. We'll de-escalate to a certain point, but we got to watch out, because we go too far, people think it's a negotiation. It's not a negotiation. De-escalation still gives the power of authority to the people providing the de-escalation. At no point are we going in there looking to negotiate with the inmate who is not doing what they're supposed to do. We're there to calm them down and convince that individual to go from point A to point B. There is no compromise between our correctional objective. It's not, you're going to go from point A to point B. And people are like, well, you know, you could have de-escalated long. No, we got normal run-ins of the facility. And I'm telling you, if you de-escalate too long, one party gets exhausted, which is the person trying to de-escalate. They get disenfranchised. And then all of a sudden, we're negotiating. This is not a negotiation. And lately on the media, they expect that. They expect all efforts, including, well, why couldn't you just give that person this? Because you don't. Because at this point, my correctional objective is A to B, nothing more. So I think there is a level of, well, the public has, I think the public has an understanding of use of force as very primitive, when technically what they don't realize is use of force is meant to save lives. It's meant to protect all parties, because use of force is actually a de-escalation tool in itself, just to get it out there. Okay, so wait, we have some more questions. Hold on, I want to get to the transport. We'll go to Russ first on this. Hey, brother, Transport Officer Poe here. Got to ask you all, what are your views and opinions of facility directors not helping their fellow staff out during times of help when it comes to working pods, instead of hardly being at the facility grounds, but when so, not following up with their fellow officers and checking on them and their mental status, showing them they care for all of their staff? Russ, what's your thoughts on just, I guess, basically just the, getting to know your people?
I think that there's a real danger in the way some people conduct themselves with regards to, that position that they're put in, when they become elitist, and they become elitist in a way where it's like, oh, you're just an officer, you're just a sergeant, you're just a lieutenant, and I'm above you and I don't have to get my hands dirty. Corrections is not that way. If you want a really well-operating, well-oiled machine, is everybody at every level that supervises, those line staff should be getting their hands dirty. They should be out there, making contact with those people. They should try to be getting a feel for what it's like to operate under the conditions that they place on us. All right. And nice. I don't think that there's anything, more salient than saying that. Is they should understand those conditions that they force us to operate in. They should be out there seeing what their calls, what their policies, what their procedures bring to us, and if they wouldn't be comfortable working it, they shouldn't be passing those edicts.
Yeah, that's actually powerful. I know for me, I do like to work with my people. I do like to understand where they're coming from. I say work with them. I'm not there to do the job for them, but I will work with them. I will, if I need to delegate something, I'll tell them this is what I need done. You tell me how you want to do it, and then I'll answer the why it's got to be done. I love when staff take the initiative, because in corrections we do want decision makers. If I work with someone that I don't feel cares for my well-being, I know this may sound crazy, but I have no problem at this point, maybe because I have over 21 years in, I will try to set up an appointment to meet with that individual. And not to be stupid, because sometimes we just have these generalized assumptions and we're way wrong. Not a lot of people show their emotions. It doesn't mean they're not fighting for you behind the scenes. It doesn't mean that they're not going through the same bullshit that you're going through. Remember, the people in the middle, those middle managers, they suffer, man, because you got to translate concerns both ways. Bottom to top, top bottom. What is it? Strategy to tactical, tactical to strategy, and sometimes you're caught in the middle and you can't win because the front line doesn't get what they want, management's not getting what they want, and then you're in a sandwich here and you wind up becoming disenfranchised. I think it's not a bad thing once in a while to add value to your director's life. As much as, don't get me wrong, they do have to keep motivation and keep you going, but it doesn't hurt us to keep them motivated. They're people too, and we don't know what they're going through. I love seeing my higher ups and saying, hey, how you doing today? And literally staying for their response. And listening to them, because again, we're all people. We're all people, but not everybody expresses how they feel so openly. So all because someone may come off cold, that doesn't mean they are cold. It just means they're not someone that wears their emotions on their sleeves. But behind the scenes, they could be that person that's like, yo, my people need this. My people need that. Damn it. Come on, give them something. And then when they go out, everybody's so outcome driven that they don't appreciate the effort. And the middle management's like, why am I even doing this? So again, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. But before we make the assumption, or as if we know why this person could be a certain way, I would express to the individual, let them know what your concerns are, so at least you make them aware, and then see how they react to it. Because I think a lot of times we just accept the negativity because that's how it's always been. But it only takes one person to come up and say, hey, I'm just going to ask them. Like, I'm not really going to assume. I'm just going to go ahead and ask the individual and see what they say and watch what happens. All this assumption that we've accepted was never real. Person is a good person. It's just no one ever asked them. What's your thoughts on all this? That's just another perspective.
Well, yeah, and for me, it could be just leadership, inexperienced. If you're that far up in the chain, you should have enough leadership experience under your belt to know how to motivate those underneath you and how to let the ones underneath you know that you're there for them. Me as a lieutenant, I can tell you that, I would always tell my staff that I'm never going to ask you to do something that I wouldn't do myself. And on the days that we were short and we were pounding the ground and doing everything that we can just to, keep things operational. I wasn't the kind of supervisor that sat behind the desk. If something needed to be done and I knew my people were short and I could hear the radio traffic, hey, I'm still doing this, I'll get to that when I get it. I'd be the first one to jump in. I don't care if it was running chow. I don't care if it was doing inmate moves, or helping out with doing breaks. It didn't matter to me because I wanted them to know that I was part of that team with them. And again, it's just one of them things that I wouldn't ask them to do anything that I wouldn't do. Somebody, and a team is only as good as their leader. And I think in order for that to happen, you need to be visible. You need to be engaged. You need to be with your people. You need to know your people. And, you need to let them know that you're there for them and not just there over them.
Yeah, it's, in my book, I have, leadership by walking around. So obviously, you have to have active engagement with your people because you got to kind of know who your people are. But more importantly, I think they got to know who you are. There's a level of expectations that you both should share that really is done through communicating. I mean, if I'm a supervisor and I don't talk to my people and they don't get to know me and my expectations, then I'm strictly rule enforcing, policy driven. But when I get to know my people and we communicate, then we live by expectations because you know what I expect from you, more importantly, what you expect from me, and we become resourceful. I know I love Elizabeth when she says my favorite part of my job is doing engagement in the field with the front line. And I think that works in partnership with what Scott says. I think administration at times is too far removed from the floor. It partners. Elizabeth's right. I love this. I love connecting to people on the floor. And for the administration that doesn't, remember the people on the front line are solving problems you don't know exist every day. So you got to kind of see what it's like to what it is that they go through every day and try to show them that you're a resource for them. I mean, that's the thing about leadership now. Leadership is not self-serving. Leadership is strictly, it's evolved. You went from managers who sustain. At one point, leadership was about self-growth. Now it's more about being resourceful for the people that you lead. And I think the next evolution is going to be more about team leadership. How do we work as a team to ultimately move forward? But while we're in that transition, leaders know that I'm a resource. So at the end of the day, if you're not engaged with your people, you're not really giving them what they need. And Russ said something that I want to partner up on. Leadership is growth. If you don't grow, your people remain stagnant. So having said that, you as a leader also got to keep yourself growing. What's the best way to learn? Walk into a room, realize you're not the smartest in the room, and shut up and listen. I mean, that's what it is. I have no problem sitting around with my people at the front line and making it about them. And I'm always the last to speak because sometimes when you're higher up, people just kind of think they say what you want to hear, and they don't actually tell you the truth. They just tell you what you want to hear. So it's better for you to be the last to speak so you don't influence the dialogue that they're going to say. And I think it matters because I really want people's honest opinion. So I'll be like, hey, guys, we have this issue. I would love your thoughts on it. And then I let them speak, and most of the time let them kind of resolve it because they probably know the solution. And then I come back, okay, guys, now this is how I'll play a part in your success. But again, I think that's a great question. If you do have a supervisor that you feel doesn't care that you fail, I say go talk to the individual, express how you feel. And I'm going to tell you something. I know it may sound oxymoronic, I guess, on opposite extremes, but it takes courage to be vulnerable. And I think for some reason in corrections, we feel that it's not okay to express how you feel. I disagree with that. I think if it's the timing and you're not overly vulnerable, obviously you're not crying, but if you mention, so, hey, by the way, I don't know if there's concerns with us, but I want you to know A, B, C, D, and stop living life with these assumptions. I mean, if you have a concern, it's not about a feeling. Go and figure it out. I mean, corrections right now is divided on generalized assumptions, and no one has the courage to face conflict. I mean, we had a show the other day about conflict. Yeah, I mean, if I want to know if there's a concern with me and Russ, I don't want to assume Russ hates me and then not talk to him. I'm going to say, hey, Russ, what happened, man? We were boys, and if there's conflict, let's figure it out, because I'm going to tell you one last thing. If me and Russ have conflict or me and Joe have conflict, that's okay because there's trust underneath. We'll both grow from it. I mean, so it's okay when you have conflict with people that you love because there's trust underneath that. It's not personal. It's not about win-lose. It's just how do we solve what the concerns are. So again, I think in this case here, instead of going with that feeling, remove the generalized assumption, man up, woman up, whatever it is, and go talk to the individual. And maybe you'll find out there's a lot going on with that individual, and maybe they could use your help. Well, because they're, in a higher position, doesn't mean they're not vulnerable. I mean, that's another thing right now, guys. It's called leading with vulnerability. That's a new thing now. So if you're a leader right now, what do they mean by leading with vulnerability? It doesn't mean you express vulnerability like, I can't do it. No. It means, hey, I may not know everything, but this is sort of what I want to get done. It's knowing that you don't know everything, but still having some idea of where you need to be. And I think that we need to embrace vulnerability a little more and jump on, avoid generalized assumptions, and just really go to find out what the answers are. Let's get to the next question because there's another one. Hold on, guys. I got to move down. Okay, so CPT Mitch says, I try to be proactive instead of reactive. I visit the cell blocks often to help officers deal with inmates. I like that. And if you're a supervisor, and maybe Russ can add to this, and Joe, but if you're a supervisor, you always want to make sure that you're there to work with the officers, but not to give the inmates a chance to circumvent their chain of command. So sometimes what I do when I walk onto a unit and I know I have to speak to an inmate, I let the inmate see me ask the officer. Now, mind you, I'm in a high-ranking position, but I want the inmates to know the officer runs the house, so I actually ask the officer for permission to talk to the inmate. I want the inmate to know that if I got to ask for permission, then, this is who really runs the unit, the officer. What's your thoughts on that, Russ?
One of the first things that I did when I became a sergeant in being out on the yards that I was on was when inmates tried to approach me. I told them that they had to have permission to approach me first, and that keeps that chain of command from being short-circuited. But other than that, being out there with your people and, leading them, but letting some of them step forward and help, with those leadership decisions, give them, the ability to be in there. This one part, though, that he talked about in here about, being proactive instead of reactive. We talked about that the other day a lot about, the observe and respond versus prevent and preempt. And that has to be what the model has to be. Otherwise, we're just there to clean up after things go wrong. So, I think that's a man after my own heart right there, because that's the way that I ran things. And that's the way that I believe that they should be run.
Yeah, and Joe, oh, by the way, hey Russ, I put the name of the episode because Captain Michael wants to check it out. It's called 5 Steps That Will Help You Go from Rookie to Senior Officer. I can't put the link in. I don't know why but if you go, the video was posted 6 days ago, so it's in the new releases, and you could kind of see the picture. This is the thumbnail just to show you, but for some reason it won't let me share it into the chat. But I don't know if you guys could see that here. Let me just enlarge my picture so I could show Captain Micah what the picture looks like. That's me. That's the video you want to see. I'm very proud of that video. I actually took part to that video, and I'm adding it, or it's already going to be added to my new book that's coming out. It's basically 5 steps that I feel help us transition from rookie to senior veteran, and to share the dialogue with Russ, I think was pretty amazing, because I think it's something that we all know we go through. It's just never been expressed, and it really came off from a dream I had, as weird as it may sound. But I worked on it, called Russ. Russ agreed, and we attacked it. And then what I did was I said, you know what, I got to add this to the new book, because I just want to keep on adding thoughts. So if I can, when I retire, you never know, but you have a collections of these books with these random passages supported by other professionals in the field. And it gives you just this roundabout knowledge, just in case one day, you never know, the way the world works. One day we go back to no more training academies, just people don't want to spend the money on it. So it's like, okay, hold on. This is a market. Now I got my book. Let's get it. You never know how the world works nowadays, guys. So Matthew Poe asks us another question. Let me just go ahead and hit it up. All right, from a juvenile. Oh wait, Joe, did I get your thought on that first, Joe? I apologize, Joe. Did I get your thought on?
No, go ahead. You're fine. No, the only thing I was going to add was that I always, I always back my officers' play regardless. And when I walk my area, I walk the duty post, but I let the officers know, and they understood that I wasn't there to run their area. I was just there to inspect the area.
Yeah, I like that. I always say for the supervisors, be approachable, but not always so accessible to the inmate population. Hey, so Matthew Post says, from a juvenile perspective to corrections, it's so complicated for us officers in juvenile corrections to deal with juveniles, all because it's all about the paperwork we do, but also how we do our job. I'm proud to say that as a juvenile transport officer, I love how I'm able to be the person to obtain information, as well as know how the juveniles are behaved. The more information I find, the more report writing I can do to send to my supervisors, so they can send off to help add to their, and that's all I have, and cut off at the end. But Russ, you worked with juveniles for a while. And I've dealt with a few juveniles when I worked at the female facility. We did have some that were sentenced to adult time. Russ, what are some of the main differences of working with juveniles and then working obviously with grown adults?
So the first thing that you have to realize about juveniles is they have a great deal of access to different entities, let's just say, that always put you in the spotlight, and they almost always put you in a spotlight in the negative way. Hey, he was mean to me, whatever. But they're really prone to making accusations because they found that, people react and then they get their way. And it also goes a lot toward along the way is when we're having fights and things like that, and we're having to, use force or use force options. Everybody wants to cry about how the juveniles are being treated. And, they fail to realize, basically the things that we're doing are actually preventative in trying to, keep them from being hurt. I remember I never knew what happened with it later. I think that they may have taken a lot of the OC and stuff out of the juvenile facilities, but that's stupid. It's tone deaf. And all it does is it forces you to have to use blunt force or physical force, or, when bodies collide, bad things happen. Staff get hurt, kids get hurt. And you're just put in a position then where you have to justify that. It would have been so much easier, so much more simple to just spray them. And so it's a hotbed topic. I mean, people, they get really upset about, kids getting hurt by use of force, but they're not the ones that are pulling kids apart when they're stabbing each other or punching each other and all this other stuff. So, I'll hand it to Poe. It's so much easier to deal with adult offenders. I can't even begin to tell you. I had an opportunity, the past few weeks, if I wanted to go back to the same facility that I'd been at, not with a badge though. And and I loved what I did there, but I'm done with that part. I would much rather continue to deal with adult offenders. But we have to have some people there like Poe that can do this, that have a little extra backbone, at least at this, point in their career, that can continue to try and make a difference, a difference for the safety of staff, a difference for the safety of the kids, a difference to, perhaps, change some of those kids. So I know I just started rambling and everything.
No.
I'm passionate about it. I know that I impacted some of those kids. I know that, some of them may have turned around because I had something to do with it. But
now when you say, Russ, when you say impact and turn around, you're not talking about physical force.
Yeah,
no,
he is.
No. No, I mean that I know that I turned some of them around. You can't salvage them all though. The ones that we see are just really generally the worst of the worst case scenarios in there, and I'm sure that Poe would agree with me on this. That it's heartrending, but at the same time you become somewhat hardened toward the way these kids are, because what they're capable of, and yet at the same time you want to do something that helps society. I'm always of the opinion that that society and the community and the populace in general is who your real client is. We want to be able to turn these kids back into useful citizens that no longer remain a threat. And that's so much easier said than done. We're not there to be do-gooders and be there just for the kids themselves. There's an aspect of that and there's a facet of that. But what we're really doing is we're looking out for society, because, as I say all the time, public safety is job one in corrections, no matter what level you're at.
Nice. And then, Joe, you worked with juveniles or no?
I did. My first 8 months in the system, I was placed in a facility that had adult offenders on one side and what they call the youth commission on the other side.
Youth.
And I spent 6 months there. And after them 6 months, when I was eligible for a transfer, I put my name on every transfer list I could to get the hell out of there. I just, and I've known Poe for several years now. Me and him connected way back when, when me and Anthony kind of, I guess at the onset when we met online, and Matthew has done the job. And I believe, if I remember correctly, he left for a little while and pursued some other things and ultimately went back. And I'm telling you now, anybody who has the gumption, the testicular fortitude, and the guts to stick it out and work with juveniles, if I had hair, I'd tip it and my hat to you, because there is no way in hell that I could do that job. It's in Texas, it's extremely difficult, because anytime that you touch a youth offender, you got to notify Department of Family Services. So now you have dual investigations going on. You have one going on at the unit level, and then you have one going on at the state level. And there's so many rules and procedures involved with youth. As just something everybody knows their limitations. And when it comes to dealing with the youth, that was my limitation. It was hard enough trying to raise my own kids, let alone trying to get through to somebody else's kids that were incarcerated because they wouldn't listen to their parents. It's a tough gig, and anybody who can do it, my heart goes out to you, and you have my utmost respect.
Yeah, and guys, so I briefly worked with juveniles mixed with adults. I dealt with juveniles that were sentenced as adults. So they were kept, I don't want to say sort of isolated, but to some extent, they weren't able to cell with an adult. But there were some generalized movements that they would share in like chapel. I kind of agree, obviously, with Gala. I found juveniles to be play games more. They fight more frequently than older inmates. And then Scott said something good too, where where are you, Scott? Scott said one problem with juveniles, they're impulsive and not a lot of thought behind what they're doing, just to act. I also found that they're very persistent. A lot of staff wind up getting exhausted just mentally when they start to cave in. And I've seen that. I've seen a lot of juveniles that they kind of very persistent with what they want, and it's constant. And the staff, because they just don't want to deal with it anymore, they find it to be more convenient just to give them what they want, and they're mentally exhausted. They wind up giving the juveniles what they want, as opposed to holding their ground and just constantly being just as persistent. But I did enjoy my time with the juveniles. I at least a few I dealt with. I felt that there were some, not all, but there were some that would listen to reason. You just had to know how to talk to them from their perspective and then bring them to where they need to be. That doesn't mean that, you know, I remember dealing with one officer who thought that it was hard for me to impact a youth that wasn't, you know, like, I'm a white person. I mean, this is the main argument. And how am I going to have an impact with someone if I don't know what their life is like and all this other stuff based on their color, whatever it is? And that's not what it's about. You know, if you could find a spark of good in somebody, all you got to do is cultivate that good. That doesn't matter what color you are. None of that matters. Just, hey, I saw something in you. You know, I saw you, you know, help somebody yesterday. And, you know, I know you always have this attitude, but you helped somebody yesterday. So where's more of that? But I think most of them listen if you know how to encourage them and just set them on the right path. But I also do believe there are some that this may be their life. I remember a lieutenant telling me, when it comes to inmates, there's 3 phases. And most likely when it gets to the prison side, we're already on the 3rd phase, but it's prevention, intervention, and suppression. You know, that's it. So most of the time in the prison setting, it's mostly suppressing. I mean, yeah, we'll try to intervene and we'll try to prevent, but most of the time it's suppression because, you know, that's who we're dealing with. But he goes, there's 3 phases, and we could try our best to prevent, or if they're too involved, we can maybe intervene. But at one point, when it becomes our safety and security, now we're going to suppress, because I'm not going to sacrifice my safety and well-being pushing rehabilitation, all the stuff to people that are not receptive. So at first I could try, and then maybe actively try. But then when my life is on the line, rehabilitation is not even in my view. I'm looking to suppress, get the team in, and we'll figure it all out later. I don't know if that makes sense, but to me it did when he told me. Let's see. Matthew Poe had another comment. He goes, I just want to mention that next year I'd be in the juvenile correction field for 10 years now. I've been through the toughest and roughest situations I would ever have been through. But at the same time, I literally had the biggest heart to serve my community in the field of corrections, because there's potential for kids to know there's always a chance for them to turn their life around. I learned that I've been the first face they see when they get transferred to my facility. Hey, Russ, let me ask you a question based on this, because I really love this comment. I got to ask you something, because this is actually could be truly motivational. When you are constantly dealing with the negative of human interaction, you know, and just, you know, just the negative, every day the negative. I mean, how do you stay positive and keep hope that there is that one individual that you may be able to impact? I mean, what keeps you motivated when you were working with the juveniles? That, yeah, maybe dealing with all these crazy guys, but all I need is one.
Well, you know, I think what it is it's, you know, it's, even though the negativity is constant, there are positives that you can eke out, you know, even perhaps daily. It's not, you know, it's not just, you know, constant negativity. It's just that, you know, that there are a limited number of youths that you're going to be able to salvage, you know. And I didn't want to ever say that, that, you know, any particular youth was unsalvageable, but that was the case. You know, I've gone back, you know, after I left juvenile corrections, I went and lived for a couple years in Pennsylvania, and then came back, and now I'm working in a jail where I come across some of my old, youthful offenders, and they've unfortunately matriculated from a life of crime as a juvenile to a life of crime as an adult. And though there are a lot of faces there, though, that I don't see and that I will never see, because there were, some little sparks of hope there, and some kids that did manage to get their life turned around. And so, what you have to do is you just have to, accept the positives as they come along. You have to deal with the negatives in how do I put this? In a non-emotional way. You have to deal with it in a logistical, in a logical way, not logistical, but logical way, and just understand that there's only so much you can do. You should not be attached to the results that you give to all of the kids as a populace. You have to be focused on the results that you're giving to the community as a whole, knowing that some of these kids are going to return and they're going to be okay. And you're powerless in a way to affect some of them. Your client, your duty is to the community, not to the kids.
Yeah, and that's powerful too, because Matt said a huge key word I've learned within the court system is rehabilitation. The court always tries to rehabilitate the juvenile before they see them over as the adult side of justice system. The key is there also has to be investment from the individual to change. I mean, this approach from the outside, thinking that you could bring a horse to water and force them to drink, that's not the case, but they think that is the case. They think everyone that goes to prison is 100% geared towards wanting to rehabilitate themselves. And I would say that's not the case. And then we're stuck in the middle trying to figure it out. And yet we're the bad guys because they think that if you offer it, they will come. No, I wish they could realize that's not 100% truthful. There's a lot of things in the middle that may get them to want to come, but also you have to make sure that they're there for the right reasons. Last thing you want to do is just put anybody in there because you want to fill numbers, and then it conflicts with the people who really want to be there. I mean, that's another issue too. Oh, we got to fill this up. Why is this class so empty? Guys, we really can't look for numbers in this. If it's the right people, it all work well. But if you're just looking to fill it up with quantity because you got to meet a number quota, the people that you're forcing there will have a conflict with the people that want to be there. And I think that's a concern too. It's like, oh, someone's up for parole and they got to take a program. Well, they haven't taken one so far. And now I got to bump somebody out who on day one just came in and wants to take a program, but I got to bump them out because this guy here who's been in the system now is up for parole, decides he wants to take a program. Well, guess what? He's not doing it for the right reasons. He's doing it because he wants to look good for parole. But the guy that just came in right now, I would like to focus my energy on him or her. But instead, we're told to force our energy towards the latter, the prior, whatever it is, the one that is coming in at this point because, I got parole and I need something. It's not the way the system should work. And again, people just want to do quantity. Yeah, we rehabilitate 1,000. Yeah, out of 1,000, how many people truly changed? And you can go by how many people truly wanted to be there. And it's funny because everybody judges outcome by number. It's not, guys. It's always going to be quality. I'd rather have low numbers of successful people who are quality driven as opposed to high numbers of people that may have took something but got nothing from it, and they just wanted to put something, what do you want to call a resume for the parole. Joe, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows when they come across the convict or the offender that's, they finally have given up. They're tired. They want to make a change for the better for themselves or for their family. And I wholeheartedly agree. I don't think we should be booting the people that truly want to change and rehabilitate out of a program just because, these 3 or 4 offenders are scheduled to be up for parole in 60 days and they haven't, taken this class that, they should have already. And when you start pushing quantity through these courses over quality, that's where you start to get a high recidivism rate, and you start seeing high return rates on these guys, because we speed track these ones through the courses that are only taking them because they have to have it in order to meet conditions of parole, versus the ones that are actually trying to do the right thing, get home to their family. And, it's sad, but unfortunately, it's a true reality.
Right. And guys, I want to mention something. I do believe people could change, because I've seen it. When I worked in the female facility, especially as an officer, I worked with females that I saw were dedicated to making change. And I saw the conflict in, what decisions they knew they had to make, as opposed to what decisions their peers would want them to make. And then I could see them struggle and ultimately choose good over evil, if you will. But having said that, and by the way, that's when I also felt love for the job. I think that's when I was able to connect with the job, because I knew at that very beginning, when I was able to connect to that one and was able to motivate some level of change, I said, okay, I just always know that the one's there. So it's not about the masses, because it's not. It's about the one, because there's always the one. And then just really following up and, safely. Remember, like, you work for the agency, I get it, but to be some level of investment. And I believe that we have a lot of people in this profession, in corrections, that work on all sides of the fence in corrections, that are very invested in people changing, whether it's for the inmate themselves, or, like Russ said, whether it's, hey, they got to go to the community. So I'm invested in providing a safer community. And it really starts with how I treat them here, and how invested we are in getting them from point A to point B. So I do believe there's a lot of people that come into this profession with the want to help individuals. But they also have to realize, and I think Russ said it and Joe said it, is you can't burn yourself out in the process. There are certain people that either will take advantage of that and manipulate, or there are certain people that just, you can't do it. And then the problem is that you only have so much energy, and you have to kind of choose how you want to spend that energy. Am I going to spend the energy on the wall that I just cannot move, and therefore avoid the people that have an opportunity? Or do I focus on them? And I'm sorry, this person will figure something out, but right now I'm exchanging 1 for 20. I know a lot of people, even when the families call, they're worried about their son. It's like, okay, ma'am, I'm trying, but I got 30 other individuals that are getting ready to be released. So at this point, what's best for the community, is let me get these 30 people ready to go, because they're ready, and I'll figure out this one later on. So, it's funny. It's just, I think a lot of people don't understand that aspect of the profession. I don't think that they understand that we are involved actively in the rehabilitation process. Even as officers, we are definitely involved, because not only do we communicate with them more than any other staff, we're the ones that are getting them to the programs that they need. So I think it's a great question. I got some more comments. First off, hello, Julie. Welcome. It's been a while. I saw Joe jumped on that real quick. That's our friend from Canada. She said whenever we go to Canada, she's going to let us hang out, make us some good food. So we're trying to plan a trip to Canada right now. We'll just surprise her. We'll just show up. I'll Google her address, and hey, you promised. Show up at the door. I know Russ could eat. I mean, look at him. He's like 6'9". Okay, so let's see. Matthew's got something. He said, he's, how tall are you, Russ? 6'6"? I forget. 6'5"?
I'm not 6'6". I'm like 6'3".
No, that's still taller than me. I'm 5'3". All right, let's see. No, 5'5", maybe 5'4". All right, so when it comes to the female end of corrections, and male staff, in my opinion, should take extra precautions just to keep their asses clear of safety and security of the whole facility. That way, anytime there's a situation, they have not only their paperwork, but the eye of the dispatcher who knows what's going on. Yeah, I mean, I worked with females for a while. I do believe that it's important to have male and females working in female and males facilities. I don't believe it should be gender. I believe we are all professionals, and sometimes we get generalized towards the negative, but I've seen a lot of more positive interactions between different genders than you could ever see on the news. I'm not saying it doesn't happen where there are those negative interactions, but for the most part, there's more positive than there'll ever be negative. And it's good to have the inmates be exposed to both genders. Females should be exposed to good male role models. It is what it is. And males should be exposed to good female role models. So I know there's some people that try to separate it. I disagree with that. I think part of rehabilitation is being exposed to both genders and then going ahead and be respectful. Because remember, a lot of females that are locked up also could have been victimized by men. So it's good to introduce them to good, positive male role models so they can still have some level of hope when dealing with men. And there's a lot of males who could use a good, solid female role model. And when I say role model, guys, I'm not saying nothing undue. I'm saying sometimes inmates don't even have to communicate with you. They just watch how you move professionally. It's like, I respect that. You know, they may not say one word to you, but right before they go to leave, they'll come up to you and say, hey, Gangi, I know we never interacted much, but I just want to tell you, I respected how you rolled when you worked this unit. Okay, so let's see. Matt says not only, oh, wait, where is he? Hold on. Liz Dolly says, I'm always looking for how we can better retain staff and get the right people in the right positions. If you all have ideas different from recognitions and mentor programs, let me know. I'm all ears. Hey, guys, I have a suggestion on this. I did a video on this. Liz, you got to see this video I did on tips with rookie staff. I came up with 4 levels. I was reading a book on psychological safety. Okay, so let me start this one off, and I would love to get your guys' opinions. But let me start this one off, and maybe we could feed off what I got to say. Okay, so for where I work, I oversee a committee that's in charge of employee morale. It's an awesome committee. It's called See Me. So basically, See Me, frontline, See Me, and it's CEMI, Committee of Employee Morale and Innovation, because good morale leads to innovation. You know, and it's a great thing. It's about morale. And part of our things is retaining as well as inviting. So one of the things I was reading on recently is psychological safety. That's obviously a very important thing to have in the work environment, especially when it comes to bringing new people into this profession. People want to feel psychologically safe. Now, granted, in corrections, I get the physical safety concern. You know, of course, there's some level of safety there too, but obviously the job is a dangerous job. But psychologically safe is something that all agencies should offer. It's the ability to be able to know that you are safe to make suggestions, learn, you know, that this is an environment that welcomes you. So one of the things about psychological safety, this gentleman wrote a theory, and it's related to the business world, but I thought it could easily apply to corrections. And I did do a video on this, and I want to also believe it may be in the upcoming book in one of the passages. But the first thing for rookies, and this is the first 2 things is on us, and the other 2 things is on the rookie. So when it comes to the rookie, hey, Svetlana, how you guys doing? So when you get a rookie that's coming into the profession, the first thing they look for is they want to be included. They want what they call inclusion safety. So basically, and I agree with this. So I'm looking about when I came in as a rookie, right? I want to feel included. I want to feel that I'm part of a team. And I know a lot of senior officers kind of like, well, you haven't earned my trust, guys. You got to do away with that in this world. Hey, today, I'm sorry, guys. Trust needs to be automatic. Distrust needs to be earned. Because the problem is a lot of people use this bullshit where, well, they're too new, I don't want to trust them, and they push the person away, and you're just not inviting that individual to be a part of the family, which is something that we preach. But unfortunately, for a lot of the rookies, they don't feel that. So it's like, yeah, well, you preach it, but I don't see it in the behavior. So right off the bat, rookies want to feel included. That's up to us. We provide them an environment where they're welcomed. They know we got their back. We set such a positive impression with them that they won't even think twice about going to inmates, because that's how close they are to us. We have their back right from the very beginning. The second thing, because there's 4 steps, is learner safety. So once they feel included, this gives them the ability to feel safe and ask questions to learn. And that's on us again. Number 2 is on us. Right, we give them an environment so they can learn, ask questions. I got obviously 101. There's no stupid questions in corrections. You know, let the person know it's okay to ask whatever questions. Take time, help them grow, cultivate them. But again, it's learner safety. So the first 2 things are on us. They got to feel included. That's on us. They got to feel safe. That's on us. Now the other 2 steps is on them. So once they feel that they're included, and once they feel it's okay for them to learn, it's safe for them to learn, then they, at this point, should feel okay to take the initiative and start contributing. Okay, I've helped you grow. I've taught you the why, the how of the work that has to be done. So go ahead, contribute. Maybe start off with, some searches. Maybe start off with running a unit. It's very task driven. You give them a level of autonomy, but with some distant guidance. So basically, let's give them a chance to kind of solve things on their own, but safely at a distance. Let them know we still have their back. Once they're able to contribute, they start feeling their level of investment worth. Then, and again, this is on them, they could also start to challenge the status quo, which means that, hey, I know things have always been done this way, but I was wondering if we could try it this way. And then we could say, well, hey, they have been contributing, so I'm very open to their suggestion on doing it this way because they are contributing. They are very successful. So, yeah, I would love to see their thoughts. And eventually that level of investment winds up giving that rookie a chance to feel the value and fulfillment that this job offers. I think for the rookies nowadays, they need to know that they're in a job that has value for them. It is what it is, guys. Has a level where they could definitely be a part of something bigger and better. And at the end of the day, it's not about being happy. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to be happy every day at work. But I don't care if you're happy or not. You should always feel fulfilled. Because this is a great fucking job. There's so much service that you provide to the community, that you provide to the people that are next to you, your peers, the inmates, whatever it is, that I may not be happy today, but that doesn't mean that this job is less fulfilling. And for me, when it comes to rookies, that's how I would invite them. So we'll do that first. Let's do rookies first. How do we get new people in? And then we'll talk about retention. So I'll go with whoever wants to go first. I'll go with Joe and then Russ. So Joe, let's stick with rookies quick. What can we do more?
The first thing, and this is just speaking as a lieutenant, is to include them. Don't push them aside. Include them. They're part of your team now. You should have trust for all your staff until they give you a reason not to trust them. I can tell you from experience that rookies are hungry for knowledge. They're hungry to be a part of the team. They're hungry. They're inquisitive. And those are all good traits that you can take the ball with and run. As far as my rookie staff, during shift briefings, I would throw hypothetical situations at them and let them tell me what they would do in the situations. I would always include them. You always walk around. You always, make yourself available to them. Know your people. If you know your people and your people know that you know them, they just want a sense of not so much caring, but they want to know that, you are invested in them as much as they're supposed to be invested in the team. Retention, it's all about the leadership. If you have strong quality leadership that, go to bat for their people and actually engage them, you shouldn't have a retention problem. I've seen a couple of people comment about paying more. You can throw as much money at a person as you want to, but if they don't feel like they're part of the team or they don't belong there or they're not wanted, it doesn't matter how much money you pay them, they're not going to stay. 30 years ago, correctional officers were paid a hell of a lot less than they're getting paid now. And, we stuck it out because we all felt like we were one team. We had fun with the job. Even on our worst days, we had fun with the job. And, I remember before I promoted into supervision, I remember, everybody's got them supervisors that were great supervisors. And you also had some supervisors that weren't so great. They weren't, engaged with the people. And, those were things that I put in the back of my brain when I started promoting. And, I told myself, that I took the pros and the cons of the supervisors I dealt with as a correctional officer. And I told myself that I was going to be better at what, they did. And, I always made sure that I invested myself in my people. I knew my people better than they knew themselves sometimes. If when your officers are having a bad day or your staff's having a bad day and they're just not right, and you recognize that, I'm telling you, lights will go on in these people and say, you know what, this guy knows me enough to know that, I'm not on my game, and that's cool.
Yes.
So, investment in your staff is one of the key things you can do to better and further your retention on staff. Because I'm telling you, if you show the staff that you care about their interest and about what they do and what they do for you, I'm telling you, you'll keep them all day long.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to tell you something. And when it comes to we can't be afraid to use softer terminology. I'm not saying we have to express, extreme vulnerability, but it's okay to say, as a leader, I care for my staff. I value them. I want to do what's best for them. I think for some reason people think that when you work in corrections, you have to be this aggressive, hard individual, and you'll realize soon that's not how it works. That's not how you build your people's trust. At the end of the day, believe it or not, people want to see leaders with imperfections, because then it allows them to realize they don't have to be perfect, and it allows them to try more. I mean, you hold people to the standard of perfection and they're afraid to try. And we have to innovate, we have to grow. So I want to show them that, yes, I'm willing to make mistakes. And when I say mistakes, I'm not saying mistakes that are careless, because don't forget, as you grow, you may make a mistake, but they're experienced mistakes. You're growing. They're strategic, maybe mistakes or strategic risk. But you take them because you got to grow. You got to continue evolving. And I think that when you, as a leader, come up and say, "Hey, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes," I think people connect to you on that. And I think that level of vulnerability actually brings more people together. I know that if I'm a leader and I'm just strictly an asshole and I demand things that are unreasonable, which is a level of perfection which is very hard to attain, if not impossible, people will be standoffish from me. But if I embrace the vulnerability, I know me, and I go to my people, hey, listen, I know what my areas of strength are. I know what my areas of weakness are. Maybe we can work together, and whatever it is, it brings people closer to you. It does what it's supposed to do. And it's crazy how people think it's the reverse. People think that, as a leader, you're, being an asshole gives people confidence in you. It doesn't, actually, because they know who you really are. They know you could lie all day and say you're this, that, and everything else, but they see your behaviors. They know who you really are. So I think it's good to embrace that and then let them see the true side of you and let them know that you understand who that true side of you is. Hey, Russ, what's your thoughts on the rookie staff, working with them now?
Rookies are those people that we really have to focus on to bring them along. They're the next generation. They're the ones that are going to be taking the reins. They're going to be taking the reins at all levels too, from the field level, down in the trenches, line staff level, to those that are going to promote onward and upward, all the way to warden, all the way to regional director, and everything like that. It pays for us to invest in those rookies so that they are capable of doing corrections right. It's easy to do corrections wrong. Anyone can do corrections wrong, but putting them into that spot where they understand things from the big picture point of view, and they understand what the leadership role is, so that you can get what you put into these rookies, that you can get far more back out of them. I just typed in a little thing here, we're talking about, trying to, keep people engaged in the process. We're trying to do retention and everything else. I always phrase it as STEP, STEP, status. You know what? Every single corrections, officer, sergeant, lieutenant should have status. And by status, I mean they should have peace officer status. The second thing that they should have is training, the best training available, using the best E, which is equipment, right? They should get all the things that I got. Earlier I was talking about, us having the 40 millimeters, us having, the chem grenades on our belt, us having the Monadnock expandable baton, us having, an MK9, us having vests. Everything that we needed, we had. We didn't have to go to a special team or this and that. When it was time to rock and roll, we already had the equipment, the instruments, if you will, that we needed to roll with. So that's the thing that I think people, should try and recognize, and last, but certainly not least, pay commensurate with having the status, pay commensurate with having the training, pay commensurate with having the equipment. So those are all the things. And, just because the pay is high doesn't mean that, it's, a big bleeding wound in your budget. Think about all of the training dollars that stay in-house when you're able to have all of those people, all of those rookies stay there year after year, and all that expense that you had putting them through the academy, and sending them to different training missions and stuff. It stays in-house, you promote within house, and all of those people give that back year after year after year. And that's an expense that you never have to cover again. Instead, what these people do is they flush all this cash down the toilets because they treat their people like shit, and they expect them to just stay. Well, why should they stay? And I'm telling you that is the blueprint right there, STEP, for retaining individuals and making sure that you're running a professional organization.
Yeah, and
I'll
guys,
get off my soapbox now.
No, stay on it, because it's true. I mean, look at all these different things that we came up with that really involve with building relations with the rookies. But I think the most important thing discussed here was, I think the sink or swim, all that bullshit that separates us. I think we need to trust them and kind of build a good relationship right from the get-go, because they're coming in now expecting that relationship, especially because of the platforms we have built. We're telling them it's a family-oriented business. But if you're a rookie out there, please do me a favor. Don't generalize, negative interactions as if that's the way everyone is, because you can go in, because initial impressions matter, guys. So when you're dealing with a rookie, be mindful that their initial impression of the profession is connected to the people that they meet. So if that initial impression is negative, they're not going to be invested in the time to just say, I'm out because I could find something better to do. I had a senior officer tell me that we're not doing enough to bring people in. And when I said, when we do bring people in and we put them next to you, what do you do with them? And basically the person is disenfranchised, and basically they'll tell that person, what are you doing here? It's a waste of time. And they're just very disgruntled. And okay, now the rookie decides to leave, and then the senior officer will be like, well, see, they don't want to be in the profession. And it's like, that person didn't leave because of the profession. That person left because they don't want to be you. They don't want to do a career. At the end of their time, they look like you, they act like you. So, it's like, okay, we're putting people next to you, and you're not keeping them there because you're just focused on the negative. And to be honest with you, I get there's a lot of negative, but when you're constantly looking at the negative, you're erasing the positive, because you can't look at both. So you got to shift. So for me, if I know I'm going to stay in this profession, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to feel trapped by always staying in the negative, because I can't control these things. What are the things I can control is, maybe passing my legacy, continue maintaining my value for what I do. And that's what I'm going to focus on, because at the end of the day, I'm going to remain here. So I'm not going to be miserable. And after 25 years, it's like, well, but at one point, I'm sorry, guys, it's my choice. It's my choice if I remain miserable, because I cannot leave my happiness in the hands of other people, my fulfillment in the hands of other people. If I know I'm going to stay in this profession, and these things that are getting me upset, I just have no control of, I shift my perspective. That's what I'm going to wind up doing. Now, for senior officers, this is a bit different. We are losing people by the droves. This is a concern, because when you got the senior people leaving, they take away the core values with them, which I think, unfortunately, is stuff that's not so easily taught. It's stuff that's modeled. I mean, we've had this discussion before where we talk about the assumption of the Corrections 101. We can't assume that basic knowledge is there anymore, because we don't know who's translating that on the floor. Most of the stuff that I learned literally was through observation. I mean, yes, I learned stuff in the academy, but it was truly watching people like Russ and Joe walk the tiers. Now, those people are no longer there. So now when I'm reviewing things, it's like, yeah, but I want to assume people know that, but I don't think they're safe assumptions anymore. And you have to be very careful, because if you assume that the basics are there, you're not going to realize that they're not until they're not there. So for me, when it came to corrections, the basics mattered because every day I'm trying to evolve from those basics. Because I'll be honest with you guys, the best correctional officers I knew or the best correctional staff I knew did the basics like you wouldn't believe. I mean, they just knew the basics and they just cultivated themselves from the basics. There's a saying by Samuel Johnson that says the chains of habits are generally too small to be felt until they are too strong to be broken. I think this matters in today's profession because we have gotten used to just being negative. We've accepted it. Even when someone tries to show you the positive, for us, it's a lot easier to be negative because the positive, if I have to be positive, I got to be taken out of my comfort zone. I'm comfortable just venting. And then if someone says, well, what are you doing about it? Well, if you're going to, talk negative, my next step as a manager or as a supervisor said, well, what do you want to do to change it? And a lot of people don't have answers. They just like to kind of rest in the negative and just go ahead and talk negativity all day. And no matter how much you try to shift their perspective, they try to bring you back to, well, it's not enough pay. Okay, we know that. And you guys deserve more. But are you planning on leaving this profession? No. Okay, so right now, let's focus our energy on something positive because you still got to come to work every day. You said you're not leaving. So I don't want you to come to work miserable because you're stuck on something that you cannot control. For obstacles for senior staff, and I'll start with Russ first and then Joe, there are certain things that are a little bit different with rookies. Certain things like you're going to get senior staff that are disenfranchised, senior staff that are just lost value in the profession for whatever those reasons are. Staff that just no longer care, don't feel committed. And for me, I'll be honest with you, in corrections, you need 100% commitment. If I was working with Russ and I told Russ one day, I can give two shits about the job, I ain't doing nothing for this agency, the first thing Russ should tell me is the stuff that you do here is for safety and security, which also I depend on. So if you're not committed to do your job, or you're telling me that you're not giving a search 110%, you're not running your unit with 110% effectiveness, you cannot be not committed at this job. There is no choice. So if you feel at one point you're losing on your commitment, then step out because you've now become a threat to me, to anybody that trusts you, because at the end of the day, you're not doing this for the agency. The job you've been put in, you're doing it for not just yourself, but for the people around you that trust that you're doing it. But Russ, let's start with senior staff. I mean, how do we motivate them when there are obstacles like, a lack of commitment now because of the external things they cannot control, disenfranchised? I mean, what do we do to keep them motivated? But also, Russ, in the effort to keep them motivated, break them away from the superficial things that they cannot control and put some onus back on the things they can control, like their own attitude and effort.
The number one problem in corrections, as far as staff morale goes, I think are the haters out there, right? There's a level of haters, and they're at all levels, but they're primarily, at the line staff level, and that whole living the dream, attitude, and just constantly, denigrating the profession. If you're denigrating the profession, why do you want to be in it? I feel that I gave value to the profession. I feel that I gave value back to the community. I think that I do believe in my heart of hearts that I kept the public safe, by keeping, all of these wolves inside their cages. I believe that I helped the community safe, knowing that when some of those wolves went out, maybe I made a difference to keep them from that predatory behavior. If you're, this might sound like I'm not answering the question directly, but earlier this week, I put something up on Keepers of Chaos because it really hit home to me, and I started talking about the gossip factor. And we're so quick to gossip. We're so quick to tear people down. We're so quick to, point out the negatives and stuff. that I asked everyone on keepers, hey, let's practice something a little bit different. Let's do positive gossip. When you hear someone saying something good about someone, let that someone know. Let it get back to them. Let it find its way back. Because I think that, we have to find a stopgap measure in order to be able to make people feel comfortable in doing their jobs without having to exhibit the negativity. Very popular to be negative these days. It's very, kind of, oh man, that guy, he's so cool because he's so negative. He don't give zero fucks about nothing, and that's really not the way a professional is supposed to act. A professional is supposed to care about his job, supposed to care about the value that he gives, and is supposed to, work to make himself a better professional every single day. That's not what's happening, obviously. So, I think it's time for every one of us, me included, because, I don't have a badge anymore, but I'm still involved in corrections, to look in the mirror and say, what do I have to offer to this profession? Regardless of, whether I hate administration or I hate my fellow workers, what do I have to offer and how can I bring more of it to bear, And so, I'll say, I'm not one for patting myself on the back, but you know what? I bring it to Keepers of Chaos. I bring it to my Substack, at Danger Russ. I bring it to Tier Talk every time I'm on. And that, I want people to love this profession. I want them to have as much fun at it as I've had. That doesn't mean that there haven't been times where, I've been pissed off. There's times where I've cried. There's times where I've bled out there on the tier. But overall, we should all be proud of the vocation that we've chosen. So I hope that wasn't too far off track.
No,
but I just think that was something that needed saying.
And Russ, people need to hear it from you as well, because Russ is our safety and security guy. Russ is the pro custody 101. Some people consider the knuckle dragger of the bunch, which he's not, just fucking around. But the problem is, it's okay. I think it's great to see someone like Russ express that, because that goes to show you even someone like Russ embraces the fact of being positive and some level of vulnerability, because at the end of the day, guys, we are in control of our own happiness, our own fulfillment. At the end of the day, you can't leave that in the hands of everyone else. And for people that say, I'm mad at me, all this other stuff, this generalized animosities, these false assumptions, because no one has the courage to talk to anybody anymore. At the end of the day, you're making that choice. I mean, listen, I've worked in corrections for 21 years. I have not had an easy career, trust me, and one day I'll share it with you. But and I don't talk much about this. Most of my experience is in maximum security prisons. I had a chance briefly to see what it was like to live on the good side for a couple of months, but then I was told I had to go back, and I was brought home to probably, I know it's a lot of work, but man, do I love the people. And I will tell you something right now, as challenging as this place may be, when you're surrounded by people, you're enjoying it in the moment. And guys, I'm not minimizing the negativity of what's happening, but at the end of the day, I know as a team, we're going to come through it. We're going to make it through. And there's just something so satisfying about that. But at the end of the day, I could choose to go the other route. I could choose to be miserable, but then I'm going to lessen my chance to impact someone else who needs to hear something positive at that moment. And in order for me to tell somebody something positive, I have to live it myself. I do. I have time when if there's negative, I know where I can vent. I know, but I got to show people at all times that there is good in this profession. And I truly believe that there is. So I'm not living a lie. I'm not saying anything that's false. I always have to believe that there's something on the other side. I will not let hope leave. Hope is the strongest emotion you can have. Hope will override any type of emotion. Fear, any type of emotion, hope will override it. So at the end of the day, I will not let anybody take away that emotion from me, because that's what keeps me positive, knowing, okay, today I wasn't so good, but let's start again tomorrow. So what's your thoughts, Joe? I mean, you also tough career. It could be easier for you to shift to the negative, but we don't. And wait, one last thing, Joe, before you kick in, guys. You don't want to have a career that's full of excuses because you'll never move forward. This isn't about blaming everyone else, but you stepping up and making choices that affect you. You are in charge of your own life, your own happiness, your own fulfillment. Excuses will never move you forward. So at the end of the day, I know a lot of people get the right, oh, it's been rough. We all go through something rough. I think the main difference is there are people that fight to stay positive. They know where to look, and they just stay positive among the negative. And then there's people that just give in. And I'm telling you something right now. You are worth fighting for. But the only person that's going to fight the most for you is you. And Joe, I got to get your thoughts on this too, Joe.
Absolutely. I mean, ultimately, you are responsible for you. You are the only person that can influence yourself one way or the other. Negativity breeds negativity, and positivity rubs off on everybody around you at some point. It doesn't happen in a day, but I'm telling you, positivity will rub off on everybody around you at some point. We've all had our good days and bad days. And, on our bad days, we found out that that's when the team actually stuck together, regardless how much they bitched or complained days leading up to it. I've been through riots with people that were just totally negative, and, the ones that sat back and shift briefing and made snide comments and just totally negative. But when shit hits the fan, I'm telling you, at the end of the day, they understand that, being positive and being knowledgeable in your duties and understanding what's happening around you gives you a better sense of self-accomplishment. You should never let somebody else's their negative behavior influence the way you do your job. Ultimately, you're responsible for you. It's one of those things where, no matter, we don't teach professionalism. That's something that's inbred, ingrained in you, either from a family influence, a military career, law enforcement. Professionalism isn't something we can teach. That's something that's self-taught. That's something that you take the initiative to do, to be a professional. We just give you the basics to help you, be professional. The job itself is tough as it is, and the public doesn't understand what you guys do on a daily basis. They just see the negative stuff. They don't understand all the positive attributes that we contribute to the profession on a daily basis. Having integrity in yourself, having integrity for those around you mean more than anything in the world. As far as retention and recruitment, I think as far as the retention, we need to focus more on the individuals that we have with us, because every single person in this profession matters. They've always mattered to me as a supervisor, as a lieutenant, and I always made sure that I let them know that they mattered to me and that they're appreciated. When you go into this profession, everybody has some sort of glimpse that they think that the profession should be. And when they find out it's not, they start the downward spiral of getting themselves in a negative rut. And that's something that, and I'm guilty of it myself. There's been weeks I've been in a negative rut, but I can't expect somebody else around me to get me out of that rut. That's ultimately my responsibility. And I never want that to show to anybody, because like I said, negativity breeds a hell of a lot quicker than positivity does. So, if you find yourself getting in that kind of rut, man, fight, do what you need to do to get yourself out of that rut. Stay professional, stay true to yourself. Number one. Okay. I'm not saying you got to have complete loyalty to everybody around you. You can't be loyal to anybody around you unless you're loyal to yourself first.
Yep. And Go ahead, Joe. Finish that thought, please.
No, I was just going to say, once you're loyal to yourself, then you can be loyal to those around you, and I'll be the first one to say it. And I'm not saying it, to hurt Gangi's feelings, because I know he's higher up in the food chain than I was. But my thought process was, I really didn't give a damn about those above me. I only cared about those below me. I always did what everybody above me asked me to do, but my ultimate loyalty was to those underneath me. Why? Because I was the one that was in charge of their safety. I was the one that was in charge of their training. I was the one that was in charge of making them better than they were the day they walked in the gate. And, as long as they walked out on the same 2 feet that they walked in on at the end of the day, it was complete success for me.
Joe, with you and Russ, there's just so many things you could feed off of. I think when people move up, they think they're given more freedom when actually they have less freedom. They're tied down to the bigger responsibilities of now managing people, which is a lot harder than managing tasks. Trust and believe that. In my career, in my 21 years and change, outside of creating Tier Talk, and I have a few books out there and whatever the conferences are, I've truly only really mentored a few people in my life. I would like to say maybe 3, definitely 2. 2 because we see, mentor is not something that you force on somebody. It's a developed relationship. It's something that's accepted by both parties. It's a relationship that really is beneficial to both parties, because as a mentor, I've learned more from my mentee than they probably have ever learned from me. But I know I may write these books, whatever it is, and these are people that I may try to connect with that I'll never meet, but I've truly in my time have really devoted to 2 individuals. I want to say 3, but I don't know if that was ever really official, but definitely 2 who are now, at one point were my subordinates, but are now we're all equal on the same level. And then I know that they're going to surpass me, and that's good. I want that. One of the things I learned, guys, is in what we do is I want to pass the legacy off. I want people to go ahead and be better than I was. And when I learned all this stuff that I learned, I want to share it immediately, because at the end of the day, you have knowledge, but I want to be able to pass it off and create some type of legacy with the people that are able to take that knowledge in and have the courage to apply it. I think that's the key for me. I think the greatest success is when we do something and give some advice, and then you see somebody trusting you with so much that they go apply it into the real world. I mean, think about that type of gift. You give someone advice, and then they literally take that advice and they go ahead and apply it. And then as an added bonus, they're successful. I mean, I know people, when you mentor somebody, people think that, man, you're giving me the gift. And that's the mentee talking to the mentor, but the mentor is the one getting the gift. Because when you retire and it's all done, everything's done, you retire and it's all done, you're going to look back to see where you made the biggest impact, like Russ said, where you connected the most. And it's going to be about your interactions with people. And I know for a fact, when I start to question my value in the world, I'm going to look back and remember those 2 people, 100%. The 2 people that I helped, and now, they were successful. And, just to be able to create that impact, I think is what's going to help me lead this profession. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. Listen, even when I retire, I'm still going to be actively involved. I think I'm going to do more conferences, maybe write a few more books, but eventually there'll be the last Tier Talk, the last book, the last conference. I mean, the funny thing is that could be more sooner than later. So I believe in giving everything 100% now, because you never know if you have tomorrow. Connecting with the people that matter, and don't just spend time with them, be invested with them. I know one of my favorite people, John Maxwell, said, "I look to create impact. I don't look to impress." Which means when I'm looking to create an impact, I walk next to people. When I look to impress, which I don't do, I do that from a distance. So I want to walk next to people. I want to have an impact with them. And the only selfish motive that I have is that I just want to be remembered. I want to be remembered for contributing something in this world. And I think this is where I was meant to do. However small of a niche this may be, I think this is what I was meant to do. And I'm very happy to be given the opportunity to do that, even if it's only, as I said, with 16 people, quality over quantity. And I mean, even the young woman, 92 years old, Gayla's mother, and she still has the Peacekeeper magazine. I want to say, I think Russ. Hey, Russ, I got to ask you this, Russ, and then Joe too, because you guys are. Oh, look at Joe showing his animal. Look, everybody's showing their animals off. But Joe's a one-upper though, because Russ shows off his cat, then Joe's got to get the dog.
Oh, my dog was up here. Come here, Charlie.
Look at this. This is.
Come here, Charlie. Come on.
Yeah, I was telling everybody in the chat it was just a
he doesn't want to get up on the couch because I beat him when he gets up on the couch. Just kidding.
Hey, Russ, that's live. I can't edit that out. So now,
but
Russ,
I said I'm just kidding.
No, Russ, I don't want a hypocrite here. You really got to beat him now because we don't lie on this show. No, so wait, so hey, you know what? Hey, Russ, let me ask you a question, Russ, and I'll go to Joe because this matters to me. You guys have both retired, and Gayla's mother, 92, first female to work for the state of California as a CO. What is it about the profession that keeps you connected even after you've retired? I mean, what is it? I mean, what is it that you find here that you don't think you'll find in other professions?
I think that for me, I felt blessed in doing what I did and being able to, in spite of some hard times, in spite of some, difficult circumstances, in spite of some things that were done to me that really still rankles me. I kind of kept an optimistic view of it. I think that, I felt like what I was doing helped the people that I was working alongside, even some of the haters that dragged my name through the mud on some bullshit that I'm not going to get into. Even though, some, didn't want me doing the things that I did. And it allowed me to develop personally in a way that I don't think I would have otherwise developed. Part of that was just, down through the years, but, I got toward the end of my career and I had promoted and I ended up retiring, but then I almost immediately came back, but I came back as an officer instead of a sergeant. And, everyone thought that, because this is what we call retired annuitant, and you're only allowed to work so many hours, and everyone thought, oh, you know what, he's just going to take the easy jobs. He's going to take the towers and stuff like that. I said, no, man, put me down there back in the front lines, and, I ended up, putting on this 2-year searching clinic, on how to find weapons, and in those 2 years as a retired annuitant, I took 55 weapons off of those yards. And for me, it was just a pleasure to do all these things. That's 55 weapons that didn't end up in the neck of my coworkers. That's 55 weapons that didn't end up getting used in a riot, and killing inmates or us having to be out on the roof line and shooting people. That's 55 weapons that, otherwise weren't used. And that's not to mention, the telephones, the drugs, and the other things that I found. And somewhere amongst all of that, I ended up just, having a love in my heart. I loved the drama. I loved, feeling like I was, relied upon. I felt like, there were a good deal of, sergeants and lieutenants there that depended on me, counted on me, or at least was glad I was there when I was there. And so those are feelings, that I treasured. And then after all of that, I just wanted to come back. And I know that a lot of rookies and a lot of new staff, and even some that have been around a while, have a hard time with this profession because there's a lot of hard things about it. And I just wanted to be able to, hey, what can I do to make it easier for them? What can I teach them? What can I show them? What can I do to encourage them? And, how can I, be someone who they model after, that's going to take away, some of the stress, some of the trepidation, some of the fear, and those things. And so, it was just a natural blend for me, because I felt that I weathered the profession well. There's a few hiccups running around in the noggin, to be sure, some things to do with stress and some incidents I was involved with, but I feel like I conquered overall. And so I wanted to give some of that back. So again, I don't know if that's a rambling answer, but that's what I've eked out of it.
No, I thought that's not ramble, Russ. I think that's spot on. It's funny. Every time Russ gets vulnerable, he says the word ramble. So I want you guys to know, for Russ, ramble equates to being vulnerable and emotional. So just bear with him. He's still trying to cross over. Hey, Joe, and I'm sorry, Russ. I mean, Joe looks tougher to you right now because he has a dog and you have a cat. All right, go ahead, Joe. What's your thoughts on that?
Where's my dog?
I haven't seen the dog. All I see is the cat.
He left.
Joe, what keeps you connected, Joe?
What keeps me connected is the camaraderie. Having 30 years in this profession, it's hard to just let it go. And being able to come on platforms like this and, to be able to share knowledge and tips and tricks and hints that, we weren't afforded when we were coming up. That's one of the things that definitely keeps me connected. Even when I promoted up, I always told my staff, I'm a correctional officer. Once a correctional officer, always a correctional officer. Lieutenant was just a damn title. If I get called in the office, I never answered the phone, Lieutenant Pomponio. I'll pick up the phone, say Pomponio. Everybody knew I was a lieutenant. I didn't have to express that, So for me, it was beneficial to me to show that, no matter what my title is, that I'm always going to be a correctional officer at heart. I'll do anything that you guys need me to do. I will help you out in any way that I possibly can. One of the biggest things for me when I retired, and it was just recently, one of the female officers that I mentored when she came in, and I had just promoted to sergeant when she came in. And I'll just give you her first name because I know she watches this and I don't want to put her on Front Street, but her name is Amanda. And, she was a hell raiser, just like we all were when we were young. And, I kind of worked with her because I seen a lot of potential. You run across that one employee that you see just, an utmost potential with. And she was one of those, of several that I mentored. But she wound up holding so many different job titles in her career. She actually promoted all the way up to major. And I'm sure, has she not retired here recently, she'd probably be an assistant warden by now. And, she had texted me and she said, hey, I just wanted to let you know, Joe, I retired. And, she thanked me for, sticking it out with her. And, she said, if it wasn't for you and a couple others, I would not have made it as far as I have. And I couldn't have done it without you. To me, that was 30 years of validation for me altogether. Good days, bad days. I mean, if you have the chance to influence those underneath you prior to you leaving or even after you leave, but, mostly if you're in the job and you have the chance to influence those underneath you, even if they pass you by on the promotional chain, man, to me, I chose to stay a lieutenant. Even though I tried to promote to captain, I chose to stay as a lieutenant because I wanted to be on the front line with the people. I didn't want to be into politics. I didn't want to get off into all that stuff because political elbow, I do not. I retired with years of probation underneath me because I always spoke my mind. And, if you have the chance to influence somebody underneath you to the point where you're watching these people promote past you And these folks take time out of their busy work schedule to pick up a phone and call you to let you know that you are the reason that they succeeded. Man, there's no other feeling better than that. And that's why I choose to stay connected, because of the fact that, these platforms offer so many tips, tricks, hints, and into the profession. And, if nobody hears it on their job, to come to this platform and hear from us that they matter to us, that their job matters, that their profession matters. That for me, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, Joe, I love hearing this because, again, I haven't retired yet. I still got about 3 years and change left. I will bow out in my 25th year, but again, I'm bowing out because I have other things I would like to focus on still related to corrections. I know a lot of people can't wait to retire, and then the day finally comes, and it becomes emotional. I mean, people talk so much about, I can't wait to get through my 25 years, and then one day it's there. And I've seen it in everyone, even the people that can't wait to get out, where they're just overwhelmed with emotion because the day has finally come. And what I've realized is, don't rush it. The day will come, but there's no need to rush it. It's going to come eventually. But in the meantime, during this journey, enjoy it. I think for me, the moment I really fell in love with this profession, I know it may sound crazy, but remember, I started my career as an officer in a female jail. I loved the interaction with people. And at this time, it was the female inmates. These were individuals that I probably wouldn't normally have interacted with on the outside. But in the facility, you have at first what they're called forced interactions, because you're going to have to communicate. But then eventually it just became part of the routine. And I made sure that every time I had an interaction, there was an exchange of value, where I knew I was getting something from them. But in the process, I was also learning stuff about me through them. In regards to expectations, I believe that for me, and I did a video on this recently, but I believe for me, I led and I still lead through expectations, not rule enforcement. Even though I am still founded by the rules, I express them through expectations, which seem to be beneficial for both parties, myself and whoever I interact with. But I enjoyed interacting with the inmate population. And it's funny because and I hope people don't take this literally, but I think you could learn a lot from how people manage inmates to how they may eventually become supervisors when it comes to managing people. I have seen people that treat inmates like crap, and then when they move up, they don't know how to treat the people underneath them. And nothing's 100%, obviously, but in this case here, they just don't know how to manage people, and the position of authority corrupts them a little bit. But for me, the interaction with the population, and then I realized that when I moved up, especially on the administrative side, I think the furthest I need to go, because I'm not a positional person, and yet it's funny, I am in a high-ranking position, but I didn't seek the positions for power. I sought the positions because I thought I could learn more. So I let my curiosity, decide where I needed to go, and it brought me to this level. And I'm very proud of my accomplishment. I don't need to be the number one, and if I am, that's great. If not, I didn't. Once I became a superintendent, I didn't look to promote for 7 years, because I loved it. But I will tell you one thing for me. I think as administration, I am at the perfect position to impact my people, but I'm also at the highest level to understand the runnings of the facility. There's so much I learn every day just by being at this level, and I'm also still connected to my people. So I'm happy at this point, based on those two factors, that if this is where I retire, it's been a very successful career for me. And it is not based on position. It's based on my position in regards to my connection with my people. So the physical position, my connection with my people, and the overall understanding of a full operations of a prison facility, but it's not based on the title. where I don't think that matters in the long run, because when you're all said and done and you retire, the title doesn't matter. But I will say this, though, just a little sign of respect. It's funny, though, because I have seen people that have long since retired that I still have respect for. And when I still see them, I call them by their title, because for some reason they've earned it. I respect it. And I still want to utilize, where others, I didn't like them. And if I do bump into them, I don't even think about their title at all. Oh, Gayla says, thank you for the outstanding live stream. Hubby's home. Got to go. Okay, Gayla, thank you. And thank your family. And hopefully one day we can have that communication with, all your family members who dedicated time to the system. I want to add a couple other things real quick, moving forward. I think in the end, as I said, when I'm out and when I retire, when I'm done, I will do more, I think, from the outside looking in, maybe consulting. I don't know about so much being an advocate. I just want to kind of help things going on the inside, help staff stay motivated. I think there's a lot of people right now that are starting to get involved with advocating for the correctional professionals, and that's great. The unions, all that other stuff. But I think through my experience, the stuff that I've learned, I think I could definitely be an asset, along with I have the benefit of the people next to me here on this panel, to go to other facilities and try to make it a safer place within the resources that we have. I know a lot of times people fight for resources that they're trying to get. I would like to work with people in the meantime who can help the officers and staff deal with the resources they have in that moment. I think a lot of the times we may fight for things that we want, but we still have to be able to manage with what we have. And I think I could be a benefit to that. I think I can help that as long as I have the right people. And, I think we could provide something positive. And that could be also a good topic for a show one day when, your limited resources, how do you kind of work effectively with what you have as opposed to with what you want to have. I think for me, I'll give out one thing real quick. When I'm limited resources, man, we could become innovative. We don't cut corners. We just become innovative. I guess we can kind of wrap it up, and then maybe later in the week we'll do a specific topic. There is a topic I would like to do with Joe and Russ, and if they have time, we could do it on the side. I'm always game. I'll talk to them after the show. But I do have a future topic that I think people may find interesting. Russ is my go-to guy when it comes to complacency, and he has written a great definition which deserves more recognition than it gets, because Russ has yet to write his book. He's too busy beating his dog. But but Russ got a definition about complacency called situational awareness, perceived but not achieved. It's a definition that the first time I heard it, it stuck with me. I published it in probably 2 of my books already, probably going to be published in my next one. Hey, Jolene, hope all is well. But I want to evolve it. I want to take it to the next level. And me, Russ, and Joe want to, because we like to explore stuff, I want to discuss when complacency can become negligence and then maybe ultimately lead to maybe criminal charges. And I think there is a connection to that. I think there's a connection when complacency rolls into negligence, and I think it's about awareness. I really do. And it's something me, Russ, and Joe have been exploring on, and I would love to get that show done so we could solidify that topic and take ownership of that thought. But Russ, real quick before we go, kind of as a bonus, and just to give Russ a chance to own this thought, because I don't want anybody taking away that thought, because there is a book in Russ in the future about complacency. I know it is because we need it. But Russ, real quick, I just want to own the thought, and then we will devote a whole show to it. But just in case, we've got to own it now. When does complacency roll into negligence, and then could that roll into maybe even criminal charges as we roll down? What's the difference between definitely complacency and negligence as applied to the correctional setting? So like you have your definition of complacency as applied to the correction setting. How would you evolve that definition into negligence as applied to the correctional setting?
So, primarily with complacency is a lack. It's more of an involuntary act of omission where you're just not paying attention. You have that pernicious, just, lack of attention in what you're doing. Negligence is something else. Negligence is actually an act by which you do something that you know that you're not supposed to do, or you fail to do something that you know that you're supposed to do. I'd say the thing that comes up most often in corrections is we know we're supposed to go do a count, and you'll see people turn in that paper count. That's not complacency. There may be an element of complacency within it, but overall, it's actual negligence. Now, when we talk about whether it's an actual criminal act or not, that depends a lot on how states have legislated their statutes, their penal codes, because if we see like what happened with the Jeffrey Epstein situation, where those officers were they were disciplined. Later, they were prosecuted, but I think the prosecutions were withdrawn on all of them, if I recall correctly. But it was for falsifying a state document. It had nothing really to do with the situation other than what was going on with the paper. So all of those things come into play, and all of those things, can add up. It's just that complacency is that thing where we just really don't know. That does lend in, like I said, though, into that negligent feature where we go from, hey, I just don't think anyone's going to care or know that I do this. And so my complacency has gone from the unknowing to the willful to the negligent, as it were.
I think we should do a show on this as quick as possible, because I think it needs to be expressed, because I think that, I have in my next book coming out, one of the chapters deals with complacency, but a little bit different than in my last book. Me and Russ talked about on a recent show complacency within the extremes of activity. So you work in a very slow facility. The complacency there will be it will never happen here. And it makes sense. I mean, it's a facility that's not as active, and people fall to the pace of the facility. And again, the expression is it will never happen here. And that's on the extreme of what you would call an inactive facility. On the other side of that extreme would be a facility that's hyperactive, and the complacency may fall into it's just another day. So you're exhausted by the extreme of the routine, and it's just you get desensitized. I think that's what it is. Again, issues with food ports being open, whatever it is, you get desensitized because it's happening every day. So you start to lose out on the urgency that these matters require, or the emergent efforts that these matters require. So there's the extreme, right? It's stuff like that doesn't happen here, and then the other side, it's just another day. And then in the middle is basically, everything is unique. You got to treat everything as if it's new, even if it's been done 100 times before in a certain way. So me and Russ realized that complacency, even if it falls within the ends of the extremes, actually fall within the routine. It's the routine that makes people complacent. So when I was thinking with Russ to evolve the complacency that Russ has developed over the course of many years, I believe Russ has had that complacency definition, which has served it's evergreen in my mind, especially when it comes to corrections. I think even before I met him, but yet he did express in one of our first shows back in 2012 when Tier Talk first aired. I think now as we evolve it, I think complacency is more about, and 100% agreement with Russ, is accepting the fact that it doesn't happen. So, okay, you know it could, but it doesn't happen here. And then you just get caught up in that routine of inactivity. And I think negligence at the next point is, no, this may be where the difference is. If there was someone that was complacent and they get caught up in complacency and something happens, it's not like they didn't care. They actually thought that they were being effective. But again, this type of facility is inactive. Negligence, I think, is where it's complacency, but it's based on the mindset where they really don't care. I know what the consequences are. I'm just not, and I'm going to use the word right now, guys. I don't care if it pisses people off. I'm just not committed. And that's where the word commitment matters to me. Okay, you hate management, you hate this job, you hate all this stuff. So you're no longer committed, and you're going to tell me that, and I'm your partner. I disagree. Because when you're not committed, I see negligence right off the bat. Because when you're not committed, that means you're not providing the effort, and yet you know the consequences. Because you know when you're committed, that effort helps, provide us with a safe and secure facility. So the moment you say you're not committed, you know that you're not giving 100%. But I also believe you also know when you're not giving 100%, you're not providing us with enough safety that really truly shows respect for me, your peers, and your ultimate job of providing safety and security. And I would love, Russ, while we have this momentum, is to do that show more sooner than later. I got the kids out of the house tonight. Hint, hint, hint. It could be a 20-minute show, whatever you want to do, get Joe involved. But there's a premise there that has not been discussed before. And I don't care about the views or not. I think it's just something that we have to express. And I know for a fact my boy Stephen Jones, who's with the ACA, I'm going to be partnering with Stephen Jones very soon on doing a podcast for the American Correctional Association. I'm a very big fan of what they do. I'll be honest with you, at least the people involved. I know that they're committed, at least the people I've talked to. Very big fan of Stephen Jones. I love Stephen Jones. We talk sometimes on the phone. And I would like to take onus to some of these ideas before someone else does. So we'll talk after the show because I may just try to put this up as soon as possible, or you can shut me down. It is what it is, Russ, but we'll give it a shot. Hey, Joe, don't give up on me yet, Russ. I see those hands together. Wait. Hey, Joe, let's do the closing side of this. And then we'll, Joe, first off, in fairness, do you have anything to say about complacency and negligence? And then we'll go to our closing thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree with your assessment on the complacency definition. Negligence for me is considered, knowing the actions, knowing the consequences, and knowing the rules, and still not acting. To me, that's just complete negligence. Complacency is thinking you're doing the right thing, but you didn't. Where there's no, I guess, negligence warranted or involved. But if you know the rules, you know the consequences of not acting, but you still let it happen anyway, yeah, you're definitely negligent.
And okay, so let's go to our closing thoughts. Joe, do you want to close out for us first? Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for the frontline staff, know that your job matters. It matters to all of us. It always has, and it always will. Like I said, once a correctional officer, always a correctional officer, and that'll always be in my blood. And my blood will always bleed for all of you guys. Know that what you do makes a difference to us. Know that, the fight doesn't go unnoticed, and don't think for a minute that you're not appreciated, because you are. So keep fighting the fight. Ultimately, you guys are in control of your own destiny. Don't, influence yourself, and don't let others influence, your actions. You got to be loyal to yourself before you can be loyal to those around you. So, just be safe in what you do. Watch each other's backs, be professional. And, as long as you have integrity and do the right thing, you never have to look over your shoulder.
Yep. And guys, if you ever want to contact us, remember, Keepers of Chaos, hit those questions up. We'll always have someone that can help you. Hey, Russ, what do you got, brother? Any closing thoughts?
I just I think that this was a great session. I think it's a needed session. I think that, corrections is just hard, and I'm proud to be part of, Tier Talk and, leading the way to, help people along the way. We're going to have to do a show dedicated to Gayla, where I tell a story for her. Yes. And then as far as addressing the other thing, we can do that tomorrow night. Right now, I'm to a point where I need to shut down here. So it's just one of those situations where, we're still recovering from from a rather, difficult Christmas, as it were.
No, I know. All right. And then, tomorrow night, tomorrow morning, I'm always on your schedule, Russ. Again, guys, after a busy work day, they come right home and they're willing to do a show to get the thoughts out there. So their commitment is beyond anything. And what's funny, real quick before I close, a lot of people talk like, oh, Gangi, why your dialogue's so long? Because you got to have context. And, if you don't want to listen, that's on you. But don't forget, we're also spending our time. And Russ and Joe, who are retired, are spending their time. So, if you don't want to listen to the whole dialogue, that's fine. Go get your quick tips somewhere else. But we like to exhaust the dialogue and make sure that people truly have an understanding of what they're doing, the why behind the tip, before they go and apply it. Because if you take these tips blindly without any context, it's good. It could lead to problems. You got to understand why you do it before you do it. I think that's important to me. Love you too, Joe. Joe, my closing thoughts pretty much is thank you guys for being a part of the show today. Thanks for participating. We'll try to connect to more lives. It was easy to do one now because I have like 3 roommates here, and they're not here today. I call them roommates. Some people call them wife and 2 children. It's all semantics. But we've accepted this living arrangement. And since they're not here, I'm able to, be a little free. But rumor is that they may be coming back tomorrow. That's what I heard. Fingers crossed that they kind of like Atlantic City for another day. But as always, guys, this show is Tear Talk. Stay safe and, look forward to more content. Take care.